Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and Francois.
Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. This is episode number 281, where we're actually going to dive into Python training and certification. In our previous episode, we talked about the Juniper Mist AI certifications and how some of that includes the automation and scripting. So Francois thought it'd be a great idea to talk about Python training and certification to help kind of boost your last certification of getting the JNCIA, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we often talk to Wi-Fi engineers who, have never done programming before, and it could look a little daunting if you've never done it before, even scary sometimes to kind of get started into Python, even though it could be very beneficial for what we do today and interact with Mist, or even starting automating a few tasks. And that's going to become more and more part of our job in the future, I think. So we actually came across these Python kind of training and certification at the end of last year when Mark Ratz from the Netherlands he shared on LinkedIn that he actually went through the program. So I started to look into it and actually going through the stuff myself, and it's pretty nice. They have a couple of certifications available through the Python Institute that will walk you through getting started with Python, but not just getting started with Python, also introducing programming. So if you've never done programming, they actually have the EntryLevel training that will walk you through all of the terminologies, all of the vocabularies, and introduce you to programming through Python, I guess.
Yeah, because it's pythoninstitute.org, and they do have a couple certifications there. The first one we're talking about is the Certified Entry-Level Python Programmer Certification, which in short is PCAP, P-C-E-P. And it does list the objectives there for each block. Like you got your basic concepts, data types, loops, conditions, and data collection types like lists and dictionaries, and also functions. That is, I think, a great way to just get started and introduced to Python. But then you need the training as well, right? Like the certification's one thing, but how did you get started, Francois, with the actual learning process towards the certification? So
on the website, on the Python Institute website, they actually list a couple of available online, like self-paced type of online training. There's one from OpenEDG, and there's one from Cisco. We'll talk about the one from Cisco in a bit. I'm going through the one from OpenEDG, and it's like organized in 4 modules. You go through it, and they have like a sandbox. So as you learn, you can actually write some code, run it, and they tell you, run this, see what happens. Can you understand why? And you learn everything through these training and I guess you're practicing a little bit as well. And it's not anything new to me because I've kind of already seen all of this, but I can see how it could be very beneficial for someone just getting started. I'm doing it because I want to kind of freshen up my theory on programming, and I want to make sure I use the right vocabulary when I need to, and all of this stuff. And I want to learn what's like Python specific. So I did catch a couple of things that way, but it's really well structured, and you learning as you go with a little bit of practice as well, going through those programs. And it's a website. I did it actually in the plane. I had internet, and I just did it in the plane. It worked great. So that's what I did, and it's free.
Yeah, I think that's the best part because it's free, and it's about 42 hours worth of training. A lot of content.
Really. Like I went through half of it in like 3 hours, I want to say.
So it's not going to take you a full 42 hours to go through it. I guess it depends on your comfort level of the material.
Yes.
But they do recommend doing about 7 hours a week if you're just, I guess, for the very, very entry level scripter with Python.
Yeah.
But it does cover everything for that PCEP certification, and you'll learn a lot of those basic concepts. You'll get to practice it like you said you were doing. And then you can actually go and take the exam once you're ready, right? And the exam itself is affordable.
The exam itself, if I look at the price, it's $59, right? And what's nice is, as you go through the modules, they have 4 modules. At the end of each modules, they actually have a little practice test, and then they have a review test. So you can go through that, and then they tell you your mark. So they tell you, I think it's 10 or 20 questions every time, and they tell you how much you have, and you can review the questions you had wrong. You can go back and study them. So it's pretty nice. You get to test your knowledge as you go.
Yeah.
And then for the exam, it's $59 if you want to purchase a voucher, and you can also, they have an option where you have voucher with retake for $76.70. So for an extra like $16, $17, you can actually have a retake if you're not too sure. So it's actually very affordable, to get into it. If you were earlier scared and you've never heard of things like, integer strings and functions and, compiling and interpreters, and you've wondered what it means and how it's useful, you can go through that module and training and learn about it in a like a structured way, right?
Yeah. I think it's even good if you don't want to take the certification, right? Just to get started. It's a structured way to get into Python. It's not necessarily network or Wi-Fi specific, but you are learning how to use Python, and then try to implement some of that with your day-to-day job.
Exactly. So that's really good. That's like the entry level. So it's a pretty good program that exists. I think what I'm going to do on my end is finish the online training and then try to go for the exam and see what happens. Like I said, it's stuff I've already done before. So, when I was doing the practice module, I was getting like 80, 90%. So I don't think it's going to be too hard. But it's a good foundation to have. And then they actually have a second level, which is funny for us because it's called the PCAP exam. And the second level is
it's the associate level, not a packet capture, but the associate level in Python programming.
Yeah, they call it the certified associate in Python programming. You're right. And the second level has a new set of objectives. It goes a little deeper into some of the topics. That you would, I guess.
Yeah. Like modules is one thing with the packages that they start getting into on the associate level. Strings, I guess how to, like the different types of strings that you could be working with inside of Python, and also some of the object-oriented programming.
So it's getting a little bit more into the advanced features of Python and what you could do with Python, or advanced, even advanced features of programming languages like, object-oriented or exception handling and all of this stuff. It's more like what you would consider advanced options, advanced features of programming languages. So you get into that to go deeper into Python and see how you could better organize, your scripts, your code, your functions, and all of that. So it looks like, to me, and I've done this before at the university, it looks a little bit more advanced. So if you're just starting, I would just do the PCAP one, get comfortable with that, maybe start writing your own script for work. And then after a couple of months, you could go back to the PCAP and go through the PCAP. If you've done programming with other programming language, you know what, object-oriented is, you could do the PCAP as well.
Since you've been doing Python for a while now, a couple of years, do you feel that the PCAP, the PCEP is fairly simple to you?
Yeah.
I guess it's a good refresher.
Yeah, it's a good refresher. It's very simple. It's we would say it's basic programming things, but with all of this basic knowledge, as Wi-Fi guys or network guys, we could be writing some pretty good automation scripts.
Yeah.
What the next level will bring you, the PCAP, the associate level, what it will bring you is, if you want to start building more complex scripts, it will help you to kind of organize, structure your code,
Yeah.
make it more reliable.
Build some custom dashboards, start bringing different things together.
Yeah, you could bring different things together. You could also write code that you want to reuse, instead of always redoing things. So that's what the second will bring you, like a little bit more structure. If you're starting to write scripts and then you end up with like 200, 300 lines scripts and you're like, it's getting out of hands, then that second level can help you to kind of.
So you'll learn some more of the techniques and best practices with creating Python scripts.
Yeah. And more complex scripts, I would say.
Yeah. Cause they do talk about tying, it's recommended for, or at least the training that it's called Python Essentials Part 2 from edub.org. We'll put some links out to the actual certification and the training, because it's still free even for the PCAP, the associate level of the Python certification. It's a free training. It's about 50 hours worth of study time. And it does say it's recommended for people who are going to be a little bit more into developing or are interested in pursuing careers that includes software development, security, networking, and Internet of Things. So, I mean, that's kind of where the trend's going with even all other certification bodies is like what we talked about with the last episode. Automation is in there. They use Python for their scripting. Even other vendors are starting to use Python and include some of these software development techniques and best practices.
Yeah. And I would say for what we do, as network guys, everything they teach in the two first level, the entry level and the associate, I think it's plenty for us to be able to build really cool automation scripts. They do have like professional level stuff, but I think that would be more geared towards like full on programmers, software developers and all of that. For what we do, I think if you go through the first two learning or the first two sessions, certifications, I think you have plenty of knowledge that you can use to do some cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And what's interesting is that Cisco also has training for this certification, and it's free as well. And there's hardly anything that ever comes free from Cisco. Yeah. But this is one of them. And it includes training for both certifications, entry level and the associate level. And you're getting about 70 hours worth of training. It prepares you for that certification, and some of the core skills that they're going to train you on is thinking algorithmically, how to analyze problems and translate that to like a process for your scripts, designing modules and computer programs, analyzing problems in an object-oriented way, and then getting used to that software development process, because that's definitely key for like scripting, is having this software development process in place. So I guess you are more efficient with your scripting and using Python.
You could, yeah. And it's interesting because they said that they created this in partnership with the OpenEDG, which is the organization that creates the other training. Yeah. I think it's nice that Cisco did this. Maybe as network guys, we will be more tempted to go through that one, because they probably try to gear it more towards networking
with Cisco equipment. I mean, Cisco is also, they have their DevOps, DevNet
track,
DevNet track, and also a lot of their equipment has APIs. So yeah, they have invested interest here to help you learn how to program.
And it's also, what's interesting is that they have it available in different languages. Yeah, which is not the case with the other one. It's only in English, and the one that I'm going through in English, it's actually, you have to read. So it's like a book you read, and then you do the exercise. No one is like playing it for you.
They're not talking.
They're not talking. No. Right. So I'm wondering for the Cisco one if they actually have people talking to you. So that could be a nice one to try. It's also shorter. It looks shorter than the one from the OpenEDG, so it might be a better fit for depending what you want to do.
Yeah, and it might tie into the community as well, so you could collaborate with other network engineers that are going through the same course. So I think that this might be one way I get back into Python, as well as going through. I think that's where I was missing, is like a structured training, right? I was doing a lot of the self-paced training where I grab a book. Like if we look at my bookshelf behind us, I have a couple of Python books down there, but you can tell they're not really open that much.
They look brand new.
Like one of the ones that I picked up, Mastering Python Networking, which it's a pretty good book because for me, it helps tie that into the concepts that the technology that we work with.
Yeah.
With like routers, switches, and now like we've missed.
It speaks to us a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. This one, as you start going through the PCEP and PCAP, it is very Python specific, right? You're getting to the core Python, and I mean, as you learn this, then you can tie that back to the technology.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's one of the challenge that most of us have when we start learning Python is it becomes dry really fast because you're like, how is that going to be useful to me?
Right. Yeah. You need some short wins, like as you're going through the training, like, okay, how can what can I do to like really learn this and apply it? And I think that's where going through, like from our previous episode, the JNCI A and S with the Mist AI, is being able to use that API and Python to see something right away. Yeah. Right? Here, you're gonna kind of have to go through these dry bits of creating a script and understanding these different modules that's used within Python. But hey, if this gets you knowing the best practice with Python, then your actual scripts will be better.
Yeah, you can reapply that knowledge. And that's actually at WLPC this year, I'm supposed to do a presentation on how to get started with Python. It's called How to Really Get Started with Python, right? So I was actually thinking about going through this program. I was thinking about a couple of things I could share and talk about and how to get started with Python. And that's one of the things I think that's important is trying to finding the balance between the theory and then doing something that's useful for us.
Yeah. Trying to tie those two together, right?
Yeah, because if you do too much theory, then you give up. It's like,
it's going to go out in one ear, out the other, and then you wouldn't have learned anything. Because I think a lot of us are like that when it comes to learning is I can't take a lot of the dry content. I need to use it somehow to really understand how it works and then go, oh, okay, so that makes sense to me now, right? Like if I go through dry training, like I don't know, it doesn't make too much sense to me because I can't tie it to anything.
And if it's not useful, also it's it's pointless. Like I just spent all of this time on this, but then
especially when they say the training is 75 hours.
Yeah, it's like okay,
that's a full.
You barely have time to sleep, and then you need to find 75 hours.
2 weeks worth of just sitting there and watching training, which is
a recommended time. It's not.
It's probably the slowest amount of time you could take going through it. It's probably a conservative number.
And also they have they give you labs and exercise to do. So, if you do them, they give you time. So if you fast, you can actually make them faster.
Okay. Yeah.
Or if you already know, you don't do them, you can kind of skip them if you want to as well. So it's up to you.
Right. So it looks like you're going through this training already. Are you going to take the exam?
Yeah, I think I'm going to do the entry level for sure. Right. And then I'll try to do the second one and see if I can actually. I think I'll learn more. I've actually, done some of the stuff they're talking about. I've done it, in my programming already.
But maybe you'll find ways to improve.
Yeah, I think I'll find maybe a better structured way. And the way I've learned about most of the Python stuff is by just Googling.
Yeah, and
then going on, on the websites. They have a couple of websites for Python that are good if you just, learning from or learning different things. They have tutorials and stuff they walk you through. But maybe going through the training, they will give me like a better structured way of doing it. So as I'm building more tools, maybe I can just use that as a reference guide.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward going through the training, and if I go through the training, I'll try the certification as well.
Okay.
It's so for the first level, it was like $50 mark. For the second level,
the associate level certification, that's a different.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. It's it's $295.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more, and it's a person view exam as well, and you have some of it which is proctored. So I'm guessing you can do it from home as well.
Yeah, because it did list OnView on there, so that's taking it from home.
Okay, OnView, that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll ask you to, I would expect them to ask you to kind of code some stuff.
Yeah.
And then run it.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah. Old
I don't
school.
think
Remember CWNA? They ask you to type some commands and.
Yeah, like having to type commands
Yeah.
in. Yeah, those are the days of actual exams.
Yeah. So
Now it's all multiple choice or scenario based. It could be scenario based where they give you a block of code
and ask you
which one of the answers fits in that section that's missing there
Yeah.
to create an outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds a little challenging, but it sounds like, we could actually learn. It reminds me of what I did.
It's similar to like how Cisco did it with the DevNet exams. Like you don't actually type the code, but you need to know
What
which
the
block,
output will be.
what the output will be, or what line of what line of Python needs to go in the block, the correct syntax and all that.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Anyway,
it could be like that.
so this is nice. Like we said, it's not, network or Wi-Fi specific, but if you're looking at some structured way to get started with Python, it's a really good way to do it. If you don't like to read books, this is a nice way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not going to take you too long. If you focus and you do it, it's not going to take too long, and you're going to learn a few things.
Yeah, this might be the way I'll end up doing it, because I feel for a while I felt like, I needed to see examples of how it was done in the networking world or how you do it with a Mist. But I think getting down these fundamentals, the foundation of Python programming, I think that will help just make it easier down the road.
Yeah, and then you can always, Google. Once you know the basic, you can start a script, and then it's like, I don't know how to do this. Okay, you ask Google, and then you'll find it.
You'll find the documentation for the class that you need to use, or the object that you need to create, or
exactly the library you need to use.
libraries. Yeah,
exactly.
cool. Well, it sounds like we'll have a future episode on the results.
You can play your sound, which is not a name.
It's not the right one. Well, we'll give you a clap, Francois, for starting.
Exactly.
For
starting.
And hopefully it's another sound for finishing the certification. So we'll have a future episode on how that went. And then you have your talk coming up at WLPC as well.
Yes, I'm working on it right now. So we'll see. I'm not going to talk about it yet because I'm still in the
You haven't started your slides yet. Just admit it.
No, I haven't started my slides yet. Yesterday I thought about what I would do, and you know how I like to do live demos. So I'm trying to see how I could do that.
Interactive. You're trying to make it interactive.
Interactive, exactly. So I won't say more than this. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see.
Well, that's good to hear. So, I mean, we'll have future episodes on Python as well as because as you keep doing this, and then I start continuing on this, we'll have our own solutions that we can help share it with others and see how we've improved our processes working with Wi-Fi and networking.
Exactly. And it's going to be helpful. It's definitely going to be a skill that will be helpful for us.
Yeah. So if you haven't gotten started with it, highly recommend taking a look at this. This sounds like a great way to start, get that structured learning in place, which then you could translate over to something that you do with Wi-Fi, whether that's with controllers or with cloud, but it's a good way to start. So, all right. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you guys. Have a good week.